The President asked me to head up this task force on reinventing government, bringing a new focus to the efforts to change the way the federal government does business.
More later on what might have happened had we reinvented government. We did not. And 30 years later, a phenomenon of our times is that the response to public events, in this case the awful massacre in Uvalde, Texas, are reduced to media-friendly sound bites. Here, the cry was aimed at Joe Biden, who, because of the recurrence of mass shootings, finds himself under pressure to do something to control the availability of guns in the United States.
The Second Amendment was never absolute. You couldn't buy a cannon when the Second Amendment was back.
But what if we have arrived at the point where something close to the opposite is true? Step back, and it's hard not to notice that it is constant political intervention that has created a U.S. system mired in sludge.
Why not make an official interagency task force?
Because we have a whole-of-government approach.
The political left is forever screaming that the system doesn't work for many people. And who could disagree?
There is a lot of sentiment that enough is enough, that we need fundamental changes, that the establishment, whether it is the economic establishment, the political establishment, or the media establishment, is failing the American people.
But it's because that system is so bogged down in laws, follow-on laws, rules, administrative procedures, court decisions, and revisions of revisions that the result is unresponsive sludge and increasingly disasters. The big story in the news before Uvalde was the shortage of baby formula, the result in large part of the risk-averseness of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, a trait it picked up following a long-ago impulse to do something.
This little girl has a damaged spine, faulty kidneys, and a hole in her heart. She's also blind in one eye.
In the early 60s, a drug for morning sickness called thalidomide caused the birth of deformed babies, and laws were passed to tighten drug approvals. In the decades since, the FDA's drug approval process has become so convoluted and complex that it delays development of life-saving treatments. Then came the 1970s and the deinstitutionalization of the mentally ill, and the system again proved incapable of providing community-based care.
As a result of that, we have the homelessness, the prisoners with mental illness, the mass violent events, the addictions, and a variety of social pathologies.
After George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis, pressure built to do something about police accountability. President Biden's response? A recent executive order with 19 accountability measures for federal police.
You got a president that's signing an executive order going after police officers, which is ridiculous.
One reason gun violence has spiked is that the police, under pressure from new rules or lawsuits, have retired or simply stepped back.
Chicagoans are expressing sympathy for families in Texas.
Result? Neither police nor criminals are accountable.
If the automobile industry can do it, the federal government can do it.
That brings us back to Mr. Gore's effort to reinvent government.
If an organization is so rigidly structured that it has to depend upon a centralized decision maker to solve every problem and then filter the results down to the people who are actually working where the rubber meets the road, then when the new circumstances appear, an organization like that doesn't know how to react.
Seeing it as a threat, big government Democrats defeated that self-reform movement. And the effect of this refusal to allow any reform of public sector performance?
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President Obama.
What an irony that is. While the opposition went mad over something called Trump, the underdog's Office of Management and Budget methodically undertook a reduction and rationalization of federal rules.
So this is what we have now. This is where we were in 1960. And when we're finished, which won't be in too long a period of time, we will be less than where we were in 1960, and we will have a great regulatory climate.
Joe Biden, on taking office, issued executive orders reversing most of those reforms. So now we're back to do something. But a cleansing of the system sludge is the only real answer.